If you want to live your best prickly pear life, you're going to need a weapon. And while there was this wonderful crafting guide out there from this really cute and funny girl, I think her name is Lily or something like that, she's unfortunately tagged it as outdated now. Don't worry though, I'm here to carry on her legacy and provide you with a new, improved, and updated crafting guide for your ideal thorn spear so that you can live the spiky life you've always dreamed of. Previously, I recommended a one-size-fits-all approach to crafting your spear, which was lovely and simple and cheap. But now both thorns and crafting are both more complicated than they ever were before. As for thorns, we've now got two major archetypes: the Reflect setup with Crown of the Pale King, and the On-Hit setup with Prized Pain. And also there's a lesser played crit on-hit archetype with the Stone Dreadfist gloves on the Martial Artist. Fortunately, the process for crafting all three of these is pretty similar, but the bases you'll want are not quite the same. And then there's also two crafting processes. One for a cheaper, worse weapon, and one that might actually break the bank. I'll start with the bases. For just about any Thorn setup, your ideal base will be between eye level 77 and 80. Higher eye levels do work. The odds of hitting what you need in step 1 are just a little bit lower, so aim for that 77 to 80 range. If you get 81, 82, 83, whatever, that's fine, you can work with that. For crown setups, you're going to want the intersection between a high APS and low attribute requirements. If you're using a spear, which is my personal recommendation, while you can use other weapons, a spear will just give you the best experience. Your trade search will look something like this. Usually the Sea Glass Spear is the best base, but sometimes there are better options. For Prized Pain, you'll want just the highest APS weapon you can get at all costs. For spears, that's the Soaring Spear, and for maces, that's the Flanged Mace. I know the Wing Spear and the Slim Mace bases both exist, but they drop at incredibly low levels. While they can technically possibly drop in the endgame, it's going to be extremely rare to get a high enough eye level version of either of those. If you're not using a spear or mace, just check whatever the highest attack speed base is. I don't even know what weapon you're using if you're not using one of those. And then for the crit setup with Dreadfist, while you do want a high attack speed, if there are bases with more crit chance, that's probably better, but I'm not really going to be focusing on the crit setup with Dreadfist in this video because it's just really complicated because you kind of need to match the crit of your thorns and your weapon, and it's a little bit too complicated for this video. I'll put some notes in here and there for how to handle the Dreadfist setup, but it's a lot more complicated. If you are playing the Dreadfist setup, I hope you can wrap your head around this sort of thing because it is not for the faint of brain. And now for the crafting processes. I'll start with the low budget version. For this, you'll want to pick up your weapon off the ground, so you should make sure the bases you want are highlighted on your filter. You can buy a base on trade, but this crafting method isn't worth the time or the gold that would cost. You start with a perfect Transmute and Augment. You want to pray for attack speed as your suffix, or if you're playing the Dreadfist setup, you want crit, and your prefix does not matter. If you miss on the suffix, you can sell the base if it's something that's good for other builds, like plus to all levels, or T1 physical damage, or something like that. Or if you just think it's completely worthless, you can vendor the base and try again next time, but an option that you do have is to use a perfect Regal Orb, or whatever tier Regal Orb you can afford, for a second chance at the attack speed. If you did hit the attack speed, this is where you just use a regular Regal Orb just to get the base to rare. If you're playing the Dreadfist setup and you hit crit, then you want to use a greater Essence of Haste. Now, once you have your rare base, you're going to want to use an Omen of Dextral Necromancy, an Omen of the Liege, and a Preserved Jawbone. This is fine whether you've missed attack speed up to this point or if you've hit. The results you get are just going to be better if you hit what you actually want. Now you're going to unveil the Desecrate. If you already have attack speed, you want to take the Spirit Reservation Efficiency, but if you don't have attack speed, you want to take attack speed. You should almost certainly every time be offered one of these. If you weren't, start over. It's not worth trying to clear the process and begin again. Just get a new spear, get a new weapon, start again. That's fine. If you don't hit the Spirit Reservation and you already have attack speed, that's also fine. You can go to the next step anyway. The next step is going to be filling the base. Now you're just going to use regular Exalted Orbs for this because there isn't really anything that you can get that's super helpful. If you're playing Prized Pain, you probably want accuracy rating, but it's not the end of the world if you don't get that, so don't cry if you don't get any accuracy rating. I've got a much more expensive spear than this crafting process dictates, and it has like a T8 accuracy roll or something like that, so it's not important. You can hit the accuracy you need without it. But once your base is full, you can now use a perfect essence. Now, last I checked, these are pretty cheap, and you have 4 options of perfect essences. You can use a perfect essence of abrasion if you're playing physical damage, because this will give you damage as extra physical. You can do essence of flames for fire damage builds. Same again, it's damage as extra fire. Perfect essence of ice for cold damage builds, and perfect essence of electricity if you are playing a lightning damage build. And from there, you have a good starter spear. The spear should have cost you 20, 30 exalts at the absolute top end, and should carry you pretty far throughout the game. There's a world where if you got lucky, you might even never need to do the high budget crafting setup, but I will talk you through that next anyway. Now, for the high budget setup, you're going to want to use an exceptional base. This is a base that has 2 sockets before corruption, and you will almost certainly have to obtain one of these on trade, as they are exceptionally rare to drop. Now, for me, needing a soaring spear for my prize pain setup, this cost me about 7 divines. Very, very shockingly expensive, but your mileage may vary depending on how far you are into the league, which Thorns build you're playing, what weapon you're using, and all of that jazz. Just so happens that soaring spears are extremely popular this league because they are also being used by Twister players. Now, before we do the first step, it is also worth checking the prices of blue bases, as there might be a blue base with attack speed on it on market that is not too expensive. You want tier 1 or 2 attack speed, or if you're playing a Dreadfist setup, you want crit. Now, if you do have a white base, this is again where, like in the low budget setup, you are going to perfect Transmute and Augment, both start the same way. You are going to want attack speed on the Suffix. This is quite important, but there are steps for what to do if you miss. Your chance to hit attack speed is 0.826% or 1 in 121. So extremely rare, and it makes this process very expensive if, like me, you are using 7 divine bases. Now, if you miss, you have a few options. If the base is good for another build, you can sell it at a profit. Very nice. Very handy. If the base isn't too expensive and you didn't get something good to sell to someone else, you can use a perfect Regal for a second chance at attack speed. However, if the base is expensive, like mine was, you're going to want to use an Astrid's Creativity and a greater Essence of Haste here. It could be cheaper to Chaos Spam later, so double check the prices, but as it stands, when I crafted my weapon, Chaos Orbs were 12 to a Divine. Absolutely not worth Chaos Spamming for a 1 in 121 chance. So I used an Astrid's Creativity, and I used a greater Essence of Haste, and that was my step 2. Now, your next step, once you've got your attack speed, whether you got it through Perfect Regal, Astrid's Creativity, on your Transmute, you bought a base with it, or you Chaos Spammed for it, no matter how you got your attack speed, once you have your attack speed, and you have 1 empty Suffix, you can use an Omen of Dextral Necromancy, an Omen of the Liege, and a Preserved Jawbone. You can now unveil this result, and you can hope for Spirit Reservation Efficiency. If you don't get the Spirit Reservation Efficiency, that's fine. You can Omen of Light it later, or just start the craft over later if you really need the Spirit. But this is, I would say, the least important role on our spear, but that depends. Obviously, shamans are going to have a lot of spirit gems, so some reservation efficiency can be very important. Your mileage may vary, but the chance of getting Spirit Reservation Efficiency, as far as I know, is a 50-50, so you can use an Omen of Echoes to basically guarantee it, but I've never failed to hit it, so I don't think it's worth using an Echoes, but you can consider it. From here, you're going to have a weapon with 2 important mods. You can have attack speed, and you're going to have reservation efficiency. The next step is to just fill the base. You just want to use regular exalts. There are no rolls that are important. You just need a full base for the next step, which is your perfect essence. Now, your options for perfect essence are exactly the same as with the low budget setup. The perfect essence of abrasion is best for physical damage builds, giving damage as extra physical. The perfect essence of flames is best for fire damage builds, giving damage as extra fire. The essence of ice is best for cold damage builds, etc. Electricity for lightning, etc. Now, if you didn't have to use Astrid's Creativity earlier, you can actually take this crafting process a little bit further and get a slightly better spear, but this is very RNG dependent. I don't recommend hunting to not have to use Astrid's Creativity earlier because it's going to cost you an insane amount of money. But if you were lucky, and you got the attack speed without using Astrid's creativity before, you can use it now. This will allow you to get a second crafted mod. I like the idea of a celestial alloy. Unfortunately, you cannot use a second perfect essence for damages extra. That doesn't work, but I use the celestial alloy, which gives even more attack speed and can also give you some extra accuracy rating for a prized pain setup. This can be quite expensive and is much more important for a prized pain setup than for a crown setup. Now at this point, this is where you can consider varling. I skipped the varl because the process was very expensive and cost me most of my divines, and there is a 1 in 4 chance to lose the spear. But this does mean there is a 3 in 4 chance to either have nothing change or to get a straight upgrade. Now, once you have decided whether you're going to varl or not varl, you can socket it. Now, you can safely replace Astrid's creativity. You will not lose any of your crafted mods when you lose Astrid's creativity. I do not know if this is an oversight from GGG or an intentional decision from them, but you can have 2 crafted mods without Astrid's creativity. You just cannot gain the second crafted mod unless you have it. So this means, because you've got an exceptional spear, you can have 2, or if you got lucky on your varl, 3 sockets to do whatever you want with. Now, a rune that is being completely slept on this league is the Warding Rune of Disintegration. This breaks armor as a percentage of your ward, so you will want a decent amount of ward to use this, but it can make you have simple armor break, similar to Warbringers, on absolutely any ascendancy. I'm using this on my prize pain ritualist, and I don't have to think about armor breaker at all. Other options for your runes, I personally really like the Greater Rune of Alacrity. This gives you 8% increased skill speed, especially on the prize pain setup. This is definitely your best option. On a normal Thorn setup, you can take your pick. I like this one, but not everyone does. I like to be fast. There are other options. The Soul Call of Azkapa is ridiculously strong if you need Spirit for your build. Venomous Rune of Agony gives you damage as extra chaos. You can only use one of these, but it is very powerful. And the Sakwar's Rune of the Sky gives you damage as extra of all elements. I believe you can also only use one of these, but it is again very powerful. All of these are very solid options for your sockets. And I don't know, explore the wiki, explore PoEDB. Maybe there's something else you can use that I haven't covered here. These are just my personal choices for my favorite runes to put in my Thorns weapons. And hey presto, there you have it, your perfect Thorns weapon. You will probably never have to replace this if you followed the high budget setup. Even if you followed the low budget setup, you've got a good enough weapon. Fortunately, weapons really aren't that important to Thorns, so getting something good enough is all that truly matters. Other parts of your Thorns gear are a lot harder to craft, and I'm not going to make a crafting guide for them, but you can join the Thorn Hub to discuss them as well as any other off-meta builds that you might enjoy. If you enjoyed the craft and you got a good spear out of it, consider liking, subscribing, commenting down below. Send me pictures of your spears. That will be lovely to see, or whatever other weapon you're using. Don't forget that I do stream on Twitch. I crafted my spear on Twitch, twitch.tv/SillyIsLily. I appreciate all of your support. Thank you for hanging out, and goodbye.